Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll be sharing my thoughts on Fear the Walking Dead Season 6 Episode 10. As is the norm with all my reviews, I won't be holding back on any spoilers, so please do keep that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. So this week's episode was a bit of a mixed bag for me because on one hand I much prefer it to the two previous installments, yet on the other hand I also found it to drag at times and did find it a bit dull, especially in the first half. But it's not a terrible episode, it's not on the same kind of standards that we saw in season 4 and 5, yet I didn't watch this episode and feel like I was blown away by it. I didn't watch it and think, oh my god, that's amazing. It was just kind of okay, really. It was just an okay, average episode, so yeah. It reminded me a lot of the Princess episode in The Walking Dead 10C because it uses a somewhat unreliable narrator in Daniel, and obviously we had the same thing going on with Princess in that episode. And it reminds me of that episode but on a grander scale, which is a good thing because that means that I didn't have to sit through Daniel sitting in a cell or a box for 45 minutes. He actually went out and did stuff and interacted with people. So I actually prefer it to the Princess episode, even though it does touch upon sort of similar story beats to that episode. And I know that sometimes people get a bit annoyed when I compare these two shows and they say, oh, it's not fair to compare Fear the Walking Dead and The Walking Dead. It's not fair to do that. But I just think if these two episodes are so similar and they are in the same universe, it's fair game to make comparisons. So, sorry, yeah, I don't buy that we shouldn't be able to compare these two shows. I think we can. But anyway, let's move on and talk about the episode itself. The episode begins with Daniel sitting in a cell in Morgan's camp, and he explains to us that something went wrong for him to end up in that cell. And throughout the episode, Daniel will narrate over certain points of it. And at first, I thought he was talking to himself, and I didn't really know what was going on. I was thinking, why is he talking over this? But we find out at the end of the episode that he's actually talking to June and recounting his version of events to her, and I'll get to why that takes place in a moment later on. Strand's group and Sherry's group both arrive at Morgan's unnamed community. I really wish he gave it a name, it'd be much easier to talk about. But anyway, these two arrive at the camp, and they turn up at Morgan's camp because they're going to pull their resources together and everyone is going to share what information they know about the mysterious The End is the Beginning group. So when they arrive at the camp, they hand over all their weapons because Daniel says that they didn't want to take any risks. So they have to hand over all their weapons and have them all sort of locked away and signed for. And they even hand over all their bladed weapons, all their knives and everything like that, which I think is a bit stupid because you'd think that these characters would have learnt by now that it's not really safe to put all your weapons away, because what if a walker comes in? What if walkers turn up? What if someone attacks you? What if someone in the camp dies and they need to be put down? So, I mean, I can understand not wanting to let everyone walk around the camp with guns on them, but at least let them keep their knives or some kind of melee weapon or something. I just thought that was a bit of a dumb decision, to be honest. And I mean, it's not like Strand and Sherry's group are going to come in and start slaughtering people anyway. I mean, Daniel says that he did it to be safe and he did it to, you know, not have any trouble break out, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, I know that Sherry's group, some of them are a bit aloof, but even then, I don't see them as a threat, really. Or I don't see Strand's group as a threat. Like I said, I don't think they're going to turn up and shoot everyone if you let them have their guns. I just don't see it happening. So, yeah, it's a bit strange. I mean, maybe he took the guns away because they didn't want a repeat of Dakota's mum dying, with Ginny dying. I forgot her name now. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why he took the guns away, because they don't want more people being killed like that. I don't know. It just felt a bit weird. I just felt, you know, come on, at least let people have a knife or something to protect themselves in case shit goes wrong. Daniel heads this table, which is made up of the different groups and the different people, and he basically wants them to all share intel about the group that I mentioned earlier, The End is the Beginning group. But before they can do that, an explosion goes off, and this basically attracts a ton of walkers to the camp. Daniel then goes to search for the weapons so they can fight the walkers, but it turns out that the weapons, have been taken elsewhere and they've been taken away. So Daniel theorizes that someone did the explosion and then hid the weapons because they wanted walkers to be drawn to the community. So basically everyone was defenseless and they'd all get eaten by walkers. Daniel tells Charlie and Grace to leave the camp and go to a fishing hut or something, if I believe, basically because he wants to keep them safe. And then we have a scene of Dwight, Luciana and Sherry all struggling with walkers because there's been a breach. The walkers have come in the camp and they've got no weapons, so they're fighting with paint pots and saws and whatever they can find. And then Strand arrives and he saves the day by putting out a pistol and shooting some guns. And then Daniel appears on the scene and he says that he was the one who caused the breach, because he wanted to find out who stole the weapons, which is a bit odd. I mean, I'm guessing that his reasoning behind this was that if he caused the breach, then whoever stole the weapons would be forced to use them. So I'm guessing that's why he did it. But then he says that because Strand has this pistol, Strand must be the one who stole all the weapons. And I think that's kind of a massive leap in logic to get to that point. I know these two have history, and I know that Daniel doesn't trust him, so I can understand why he immediately blames Strand, and we have seen only in the last episode that Strand double-crossed people. But when I saw Strand pull out the pistol, I didn't think, oh, Strand must have stolen all the weapons. I just thought he's just snuck a pistol in. He's just snuck a pistol in past the checkpoint, because we saw previously in the episode that when he was at the checkpoint and when they were searching for the weapons and having to hand them over, he tried to sneak a knife in, which Daniel knew he had on him. So, you know, I mean, it's completely possible that he just had another gun on him hidden somewhere that Daniel didn't see. So I don't really know how Daniel got to this point to go, oh, he's got this pistol, so he's stolen every gun. Well, I do know because it is explained later on, but still it just felt a bit weird. I was kind of like, oh, really? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. But again, it's hard to explain at the moment without going into the big twist. It does make sense later on, which is odd. Hopefully you'll understand when I get to it in a moment. Strand is then put into a cell. Daniel tries to question him about where the guns are, but he doesn't have any luck and he disappears. He then comes back and he's even more pissed off this time and angrier than ever, and he tries to interrogate him once more. And I really like this scene in particular. Daniel comes back and he shoots Strand, or tries to shoot Strand and misses, narrowly misses him. And then I really liked how Strand made reference to being shot in season 3 when Strand shot him in the face. Because weirdly enough, when I was watching this episode, because it's highly focused and centered on Daniel, I was actually thinking to myself, why doesn't he have a scar from where Strand shot him in the 3rd season? Why was this never brought up? Why is this being ignored? So I was pleasantly surprised that it was actually referenced this episode. Daniel intimidates Strand by saying that I survived a shot in the face, so you can. So he's basically saying to him, I'm going to shoot you in the face and see how you like it. I survived, I know you'll survive, you won't die, so I'll do it just to talk to you. And then Daniel reaches into his mouth and pulls out what I can only describe as like a cheek implant. And he pulls it out and then like his entire cheek just collapses in on itself. And then you see the physical damage, you see what Strand actually did to him. So I like that they actually referenced this and that, you know, there were repercussions from it and that Daniel is actually suffering. And Daniel says that he has pain every day and that you can only eat soup, you can't really chew. And then, you know, he puts it back in and yeah, like I said, I really like that. I wasn't expecting that to be addressed. I always thought it was weird that this was just never mentioned and never really brought up after season 3. And I wasn't expecting Daniel to be having to live with this and have to live with this kind of this implant. So yeah, that was a pleasant surprise. I really like that. The walkers do eventually break through the gates of the community, and you guessed it, what happens next is that Superman Morgan arrives in just the nick of time again to save everyone. And I mean, is there nothing this guy can't do in this show? I mean, he basically would give the Avengers a run for their money at this point. I mean, he could kill Thanos in one punch. Or maybe Thanos would chop his own head if he had to hear him bloody talking about life being precious all the time. I know I would, but yeah, he's just so overpowered. He just shows up all the time. Whenever anyone's in danger, here comes Morgan. Like, why can't any of the other characters do anything? Why is it Morgan all the time? So Super Morgan saves the day, and then Morgan asks Daniel where Grace is. Daniel tells him that he told Grace to go to this fishing hut or whatever, and they go to look for her, but she's not there. Then they do eventually find Grace, and then Grace says that, no, Daniel, you didn't tell me to go to this hut. You told me to go to the caverns, and Charlie backs her up and says that as well. And then it's kind of revealed that this point that Daniel is kind of losing it and going crazy and doing things that he can't remember. It's revealed that he was the one who actually hid the guns away because they're found in his shed. And yeah, he's just losing it and going mad. And this goes back to what I said earlier about the things in this episode that didn't make sense kind of then making sense after this reveal, because, you know, it's extremely reckless of Daniel to let walkers in through the gate and breach the gate because he wanted to find out who was the person who stole the guns. But when he's not in his right mind and not thinking properly, he would do that. I also said it's a bit of a stretch for him to then associate Strand with being the one who stole all the guns just because he had a pistol. But again, he's not thinking properly. So it's weird because when I was making my notes for this episode, I was writing things down saying, well, this is silly, this doesn't make sense, this is weird. But then when it's kind of revealed that Daniel's head is all over the place, you kind of understand why he makes these decisions. And, you know, credit where credit's due. I like that because that's good foreshadowing. You can go back and watch this episode and look at these points where Daniel's doing weird things, and look at the things I just mentioned where I said this is a bit odd, and you can see that the episode is very clearly sort of laying out the groundwork and laying out the foundations for this reveal to come. And I like that. I thought that was really well done, especially compared to the Princess episode when, in my personal opinion, we just saw Princess doing whatever she was doing, acting, talking to people, going about her normal business, and then it was revealed out of nowhere that everything we'd seen hadn't actually happened, and there was no sort of, for me, I didn't see it coming. There was no sort of inkling that what was happening previously wasn't real. And maybe that was the point. Maybe the writers in that one wanted it to be, a surprise twist. But I like it when you see the twist coming. I like it when you go back and you can watch it and you go, oh, right, yeah, that's why that happened. That makes sense. I don't know, kind of like if you watch the film Shutter Island and you go back and watch it again and you're like, oh, yeah, this is why this happened, blah, blah, I understand it. That's good. So I like that. Now, I'm not saying that this is on Shutter Island's level because I love that film and this is nowhere near as good as that, but at least this reveal made sense to me. There are some people out there who do like the Princess reveal, and I know some people did see it coming, whereas I personally didn't, so maybe that's just me. But I don't know, I just felt it was a lot better done in this episode than it was in The Walking Dead. Initially, I thought that maybe Daniel had dementia or a brain tumor or some kind of, disease that was affecting his memory, and this is where June comes in, and June is running all these tests. Well, not run, I say running these tests like it's high tech. She's basically just doing these memory tests on him, and that's why she's brought to the camp, and that's why Daniel is narrating and telling her everything. And Daniel is basically able to remember things and remember words that she says and remember things that she tells him. So it turns out he doesn't have anything physically wrong with him. Well, at least, that's what she thinks. I mean, they can't be for sure because they don't have technology to, do full body scans or that kind of stuff. But she says that he doesn't have anything physically wrong and it's just a psychological problem. And yeah, basically Daniel's gone a bit crazy. So Daniel then decides that he will have to leave Morgan's community because he's a danger to himself and a danger to everyone else. So he decides to leave, and then Strand offers him refuge at Lawton, which he accepts. And I like that these two have made up, and maybe this is the end of Strand and Daniel's rivalry, I don't know. But I like that there seemed to be a kind of a conclusion to these two, to their long story arc of going back and forth to one another. I like that Daniel accepted Strand's help. However, I'm not, excuse me, I just hit my arm on the table. However, I'm not sure how I feel about the whole Daniel going away again, because he went away in season 2, halfway through the season, he disappeared. He came back in season 3. He then disappeared in season 3 and came back in season 5. He reappeared on the show in season 5, didn't really do anything, and now he's gone again. I mean, how many times can a character keep going and leaving and going and leaving? And I know I made the point a couple of weeks ago when John Dory died that John could have just ridden off into the sunset and then maybe came back in a couple of years, and that you don't have to kill everyone if their actors want to leave. And I'm guessing that maybe Ruben Blades, is that how you pronounce his name, who plays Daniel, maybe he's got other projects going on and maybe he wanted to do something else, so they've temporarily written his character out, because I don't think we're going to see Daniel till at least next season now at the earliest, because his character's going to be dealing with all this mental health shit. So maybe he just needs a break, Daniel, the guy who plays him, to do other things. But I don't know, I just think maybe they should have killed him, to be honest, instead of just keep coming back and keep leaving. I mean, you can do it once. He came back in season 3 and I was like, wow, it's Daniel. But if he comes back again in season 7, I'm going to be like, oh, it's Daniel, back again. Here he is again. Daniel, oh, he's gone again and he's coming back again. Like, how many times can we keep doing it, Perhaps I wouldn't be saying this if it actually felt like the show was doing something worthwhile with his character, but it just doesn't really seem like Daniel's character is going anywhere. And now, this episode, he finally gets a bit of a plot, a bit of a story, and he's gone. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just time for him to go. But who knows? Maybe Ruben likes being on the show and maybe he wants to come back. And I don't know. Going a bit off topic now, I did actually have a look at Ruben's Wikipedia page to find out what he does. And Jesus, man, this guy's a busy man. It says like he's a musician, an actor, a politician, an activist, and like, how does he do everything? How does this guy who's 72 years old get the time to do all this stuff? And I mean, I genuinely thought this dude was in his late 50s as well, or 60s. I didn't know he was 72. So, I mean, I know I've been complaining about Daniel not doing all these action scenes now, but maybe that's why, because he's getting on a bit. The dude's 72 years old, but I mean, he's aging very well. I thought he was like in his 50s or 60s, like I just said. So yeah, that surprised me, but I don't really know why I started talking about that, but there you go. There's a few minor points that I want to cover before I end the video. So firstly, I really liked how Daniel referenced burning down the house in season 2. I think he said to Charlie or someone that, oh, last time I went, a bit mad, I ended up destroying the place we stayed at and burnt it down. And I have to admit, I kind of forgot about that. It's been so long since I watched season 2, I forgot that he went crazy and started having these visions of, was it Griselda, his wife, and started, seeing her and burnt the place down. And yeah, I guess it also, makes sense now that Daniel is losing his mind again because he has previous for it. He's done it in the past. So I liked how it linked them two together because I completely forgot about that, and it made, his descent into madness again this episode all the more understandable. So again, that was a nice little callback to the earlier seasons, which I didn't expect. Secondly, when I was watching this episode, I did write down in my notes that it kind of felt to me like Ruben Blades, again, hope I don't ruin the pronunciation, but it kind of felt like when he was talking to June, when he was narrating, kind of felt like he was like sleepwalking through his lines a bit, like he didn't really care. Like the delivery felt really weird, but now that I know that Daniel is insane, for lack of a better term, and is losing his mind, I guess maybe that's the point. Maybe he was supposed to be out of it and not really cognizant, and was supposed to be a bit, dreamy and just talking like a robot with no emotions or whatever. So I don't know. So I think that's a bit harsh of me now looking back. I don't think I can say that that's the fault of the actor, and that, initially I thought, well, maybe this guy doesn't care. Maybe he's just giving up. He doesn't care about the show, blah, blah, blah. But maybe that was the point. Maybe that was the point. Maybe he was supposed to sound, sleepy and uninterested because he just had like a mental breakdown. So yeah, I don't think I can really criticize Ruben for that now that I know what was actually happening with his character. Lastly, one more bit about Ruben's dialogue. It did kind of annoy me when he's talking to June and he's just like constantly bigging up Morgan, going, oh, I thought, Morgan could do this, Morgan, blah, 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 Morgan. It's like, why does everyone on this show worship Morgan? He just came over and made you all like peaceful and lose your way and, oh, we have to save people, and basically made you join his little cult, and now he's doing the same thing again. And it's just like a hero worship. I know I keep talking about it, and I mentioned it last week, but it is. It's like Morgan on this show. The writers are trying to make him out to be this heroic, amazing leader. We all look up to Morgan. Oh, Morgan's come and saved us. Oh, Morgan's so wise. Morgan does this. Morgan. But he's not, he's not a character like that. He's not a Rick Grimes. I'm sorry. I just don't think Morgan is that guy. And I just don't like it when characters are always saying, oh, Morgan's so amazing. Morgan did this. Oh, Morgan made me believe in this. Like, oh, no. No, give the other characters stuff to do. So yeah, that's about it really. It was a strange episode. Like I said, the first 20-25 minutes, I wasn't really that invested. I was kind of thinking, well, I don't really care about an explosion going off and, oh, here we are, the more walkers have come, we've got to deal with more walkers again. And it kind of was going down the road of it being, well, at least I thought from the first sort of 20-25 minutes, I thought, oh, this is just going to be a filler episode. They're just going to deal with these walkers and we're not really going to advance the plot. Nothing's really going to happen till next week. But then when the twist came and I was like, oh, okay, I get that. I like that. I like how it was nicely set up. And yeah, it's weird. Even though I liked the second half, overall, it's still kind of average. It was still just okay. But like I said, much preferred it to the previous two. It wasn't, anywhere near as good as 6A still, in my opinion. I still think Fear has a lot to do to match the first half of this season. I don't know whether it will or not, because again, I just think that maybe Fear the Walking Dead works better when having fewer characters. There are just too many characters on this show now, and people just get frozen out all the time, and yeah, the cast is just too big. So I think it works better when characters are in these smaller situations. And I know that sounds weird to say because this episode did mainly focus on Daniel, but like I said, there was a lot else going on. There were a lot of other characters. We saw everyone else in this episode, but I don't know. It's a strange one because, I've been begging Daniel to do more. I've been begging the writers to have Daniel be the sort of main star and be the protagonist of an episode and have him center the stage and whatever and do more. And then he did, and it was kind of just like, oh, it was okay, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what else I can say. It was okay. It was okay. I liked the twist. At least I liked that. I liked that. I thought it was better than the Princess episode. I thought it was better done when compared to The Walking Dead, but it was still just an okay episode. Really, nothing special, nothing terrible. So let me know your thoughts below. Did you enjoy this video? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Did you like this a lot more than I did, or did you hate it a lot more than I did? And do you like my new haircut? I don't know why I said that. That was a bit weird. But yeah, God, what am I talking about? Yeah, so let me know what you think. Hopefully you liked it. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. I'm going to go have a cup of tea and have some food now because I'm getting hungry. So goodbye.